The Venetian Hotel ready for the clash of titans. Tomorrow's big CNN debate comes just as we see a big shift in the polls. Senator Ted Cruz taking the lead in a recent poll in Iowa and moving up, at least in every poll that you see. You have two separate ones that show him in front of Donald Trump. In the first in the nation caucus state, Iowa, very important for practical as well as optical reasons. We have Iowa Republican Congressman Steve King. He endorsed Ted Cruz for president, joins us now. And again, an early Christmas wish to you and the family.
And I to you.
Always good to have you on. Ted Cruz making a move in the polls. You, of course, can't be surprised. You're a supporter. But to what do we attribute this acceleration now?
Well, as we work through this and you watch Ted Cruz, I've long been calling for a full-spectrum constitutional conservative, one who checks all the boxes on all the lists, and the caucus goers are looking for something like that, too. They have been disappointed time after time, so they're skeptical. They were holding back while Ted Cruz laid the groundwork on his campaign, and he took position on issue after issue. He put a team together, and along about, sometime in November, around the 16th of November, I made that endorsement. And from that time on, then we saw Ted Cruz's numbers grow.
You saying this is the King effect?
I'm saying that it didn't hurt him, but he laid that groundwork to make it possible. He is the candidate, and he's a candidate that I say checks all the boxes. So the caucus goers who were sitting back, finally it was like somebody fired the starting pistol. Okay, make up your mind. And they were going to start making up their mind anyway. I think they did it more abruptly than they would have otherwise, and they will and continue to make these decisions between now through New Year's. But come January, that's this year, I believe, is going to be the month for reconsideration, if there is any.
You think January is a big month coming out of the box, the new year? Let me give you an early Christmas present of softball. This speculation that Senator Cruz may be peaking too soon. What do you make of that, Congressman?
I know that's been an object of concern inside the Cruz campaign as well. Looking back at history, they know that. And we had 6 different leaders last time. But in this race, he's so solid, and no one has had this kind of a jump in the history of the Iowa caucus. So what I say to them and to anybody that might find themselves in this position, when you find yourself on the ascent, give it more fuel because you've got to keep climbing. I think he can do that. I'm comfortable with this, but they're going to have to really put the pedal to the metal now and sprint on through Iowa. 2
interesting plays Cruz has made lately in contrast to Donald Trump. Donald Trump comes out, gets a lot of attention, full stop. But he gets a lot of attention saying, let's ban all the Muslims. Resonates with people like you and others. Ted Cruz comes out and says, that's not my idea. We have to be careful about the Syrian refugees. We got to be hard line. Our vetting's not good enough. But I'm not going there. I don't want to ban all of everybody. A little bit of a dicey thing. He could have just said, Donald's right, which he said in the past. What do you make of that distinction?
Well, I think it was a policy distinction, not so much a political one. And I know where I said is that we're going to protect the civil rights, and we're also going to protect the rights of citizenship of Muslims. Donald's statement was really blanket enough that if he had citizens traveling overseas that were Muslim, they couldn't come back. If he had soldiers that were Muslim, under that at least first definition, they couldn't come back. And I think also that Ted Cruz was speaking to legislation that he's authored and, I believe, introduced that would block refugees from coming from, let's say, terrorist-producing countries. So I think it's consistent with the legislation he laid out. He was fairly cautious in the way that he dealt with Donald Trump. But there's never been any wisdom in taking on Donald Trump and starting a fight with him.
So he's at a private fundraiser, and he says, I don't think it's going to be Carson. I don't think it's going to be Trump. Not exactly a full-throated attack, but that was enough for Trump. Trump comes at him. He responds with a tweet to respond to being called a maniac by Trump, citing the movie and with a video clip. That is surprising. That is funny. Is that a part of Ted Cruz that we don't know?
Yes, it is. Ted Cruz, how much music he knows and appreciates, I don't know. I know that he does know and appreciate music in a way like that, where he could pull that out of his head and say, let's do. I know he's one that quotes from movies continually. So he's kind of a movie junkie. I presume he picks up the list of movie also as well as the music. So I think that's pure Ted Cruz. I don't think it's anybody in the campaign. I think he just said, we're doing this.
So what do you think Iowa is going to do? Taking Ben Carson down as precipitously. How do you explain that? And what do you think we see tomorrow night?
Well, I think what happened with Ben Carson is that he worked hard. He's been in Iowa working for 2 years. He built an organization, announced over a year ago that he had county chairs in all 99 counties. That's a long reach, and it was through the Christian Evangelical Network that's there. And you saw, as Ben Carson's numbers started to go down, you saw that there was criticism of his foreign policy that was fairly consistent in the national media. I think that the voters, the caucus goers in Iowa, were looking at the field, and they decided that Ted Cruz answered all of their concerns that had caused them to move into Ben Carson's territory. And I think a lot of the evangelicals decided foreign policy was a big component of this too, and they moved from Carson to Cruz.
All right, so let's do one issue topic here before I let you go. Climate change. You go anywhere else in the world, it's a no-brainer for them. The COP21 that's going on in Paris, there are concerns there about security, not about the climate. Back home and here, still a lot of pushback against the administration for wanting to do more about climate change. Why won't you get on board with the science and make some changes?
Well, I think I am on board with science. I think the scientists that have been pushing this have collected a lot of money from donors and government and created a science that's awfully hard to sustain. I could take you down through a lot of the reasons why I'm very skeptical of this proposal on climate change, but here's this.
You know it's 99% of the scientific community believes
I know that that's probably about the ratio of the money that's been spent also on either side of that. But I think that if this is so good, here, I've done this before where I've looked at some of that. I don't quite understand this. I'm going to dig down into it. When I get to where I understand it, I'll be able to embrace it. I tried to do that, and I get there. So here's my answer to President Obama. If you want to move climate change, come to Congress and make the case. If you can't convince the United States Congress, probably it's not a good idea.
So he got invited for the State of the Union once again, so we'll see if he makes the case there. To you, sir, and your family, an early Christmas wish.
Merry Christmas.
And I'll see you in Iowa for sure.
Look forward to seeing you in Iowa. Thanks very much, Chris.
Always good to have you, Congressman King.